All right. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves really quickly, and then we'll go over the class, and then we'll get right to it. We've got a lot of stuff for you guys, but I also want to be flexible too if you have some other questions too. So I'm just going to start out by introducing myself. I'm Tom Hinkle. I've worked in the financial industry for over 20 years. I've been working with Excel for probably over 25 years. I really love this tool, and I've really gotten deep into a lot of things, and I want to share what I have with everybody else who needs to learn a little bit more, because it's really great, but sometimes you don't even know the right things to do. So today, I've talked to a couple of you in setting this up, and we have landed on doing a session on conditional formatting. I think you guys are going to see some really cool stuff here. So what I'd like to do, I think you guys know each other pretty well, but I'd like to just kind of go around, everybody say their name, maybe what department you work in, how you use Excel, and then the most important question I want to know is, if I looked at your Spotify playlist, what would it be and what were some songs on there? And I'll go first with that one. I am a child of the 80s, so I'm going to have any playlist that's the 1980s. And two of the artists you would see on my playlist are Journey or the Beastie Boys. A little bit different, but that's how it is. And I think I'll just go in order you guys joined. So Jeff, you were the early bird, so I'm going to put you on the spot next. Just a quick little intro.
My name is Jeffrey. Work for the Central Division, and I use Excel a lot in all of my analysis with my service line. So this tutorial should be very helpful for me. See if I can learn some new type ways of doing stuff, be more efficient. And I don't have a Spotify list.
All right. If you did, what would be on it? Or do you just don't know?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Donna, I'm going to let you go next.
Hey, I'm Donna. I'm also with Central Division. I use Excel for everything. And I look forward to learning ways to make my usage be more efficient, especially with like pivot tables and things like that. I don't have a Spotify list, but I have Apple Music. So you will probably find like Christian / gospel on there. Kurt Franklin be my top person on there.
Awesome. All right, Elizabeth, you go by Elizabeth or Beth, or you're next?
So I go by Beth, and I missed the instructions because I'm having some volume issues with my computer. I'm with the Central Division also. Just like the rest of my team, we use Excel often, and just trying to get some more knowledge shortcuts, some things we might have missed in other classes. So looking forward to any information we can get. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, the only other thing that I was asking, just kind of a fun thing, is if you had a playlist on Spotify or something else, what would be the #1 playlist or song or band you might have on there? So if you got that, want to share, great. If not,
yeah, because it depends on my mood. So what's on. So, but thanks.
Okay. All right, Mary.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I was having trouble with my sound. So I'm Mary Duncan. I work in LifeShare for organ recovery, and sorry, I was missing some of that too. But Spotify list, I was of course of the '80s like you. So anything, Def Leppard, any of that kind of stuff would be my music. So.
Okay. Diane, how about you? Well, how do you use Excel, and what music do you like?
Was trying to find the mute button. Good morning. My name is Diane. Well, we all know that. As my fellow teammates said, Beth, Donna, and Jeffrey, we use Excel a lot. It's like every day, all day. We're in an Excel spreadsheet. So I don't mind all the knowledge I can get on Excel. Right now, I would really, really like to know the ins and outs of power pivots. You know, that's where my interest is right now. I guess there's still something to learn in conditional formatting, you know, because there's always something new coming up on Excel. Um, Spotify playlists? No, I see the app on my phone every day and I wonder what is that. But I listen to a lot of relaxation music. You have to when you're in this job. I do like spa music, instrumentals,
Oh, yeah.
that kind of stuff. Stuff I don't have to stop to listen to because they have no words. You know, just
Yeah.
that type of music. Yeah.
I do like that kind of music too at times. I've got 3 teenagers, so they pretty much made me subscribe to Spotify a couple years ago. So like, why are you using iTunes music? I'm like, it's the same, guys. It doesn't matter, but I'm no longer cool, I guess. So, all right, Ray.
Yes, I'm Ray. I work at LifeShare with Mary. And Mary has taught me like a lot about Excel the last couple years. She has taught me some basics about like pivot tables, and we've used a lot of it to build different dashboards and scorecards linking different things to larger data sheets. But yeah, I've learned a lot from Mary. I'm looking forward to learning more. And music wise, I use Spotify. I don't really have like a particular playlist. I pretty much will just listen to anything.
Okay. And Amy, you're up.
Hi guys, Amy Vogt. I work with Ray and Mary over at LiveShare, where we help save lives every day through organ, tissue, and eye donation. And I use Excel every day, all day. I have a background in engineering, so my brain works in ones and zeros, but I still feel like I have so much to learn. So I'm really excited to learn about conditional formatting because I like use it a little bit, but I don't really know. And I look up a lot of YouTube videos when I want to do something. So really
Awesome.
excited. And then my Spotify playlist has Taylor Swift and Adele are my 2 top go-to.
Taylor's good, man. I like her. All right. Just a couple more things about me in this class. I've tried to do this kind of thing, teaching as like a side hustle. And so I have a class that I've built, a beginner class that I will share with you guys and go over, but I'm not going to do that till the end. I'm not going to do that bait and switch a lot of people do. I want to teach you guys first. If anybody's interested, we can talk about it at the end. If not, you can drop off. And I really thought that doing these webinars for people would be a way to kind of show you kind of what's out there and maybe get some interest, ideally into the companies to get interest to provide more training too. Oh, is it Elizabeth? Beth is saying she's having a tough time hearing. Is anybody else having a tough time hearing me?
Hey, Beth, it may be your, if you go on your volume on your computer, I don't know if you were able to move that up. I had to do that. I was having video issues up until now too. So, but try that.
Okay.
So Mary, I can hear you and I can hear everybody else, but I can't really hear Tom real well.
Okay. Then I guess that's not it.
How
Yeah.
about now? I just moved my microphone a little bit closer.
That is
That's
good.
better.
Okay. All righty. Conditional formatting, there's so many cool tools. Like you guys talked about Power Pivot, pivot tables. Excel's just come out with dynamic arrays, but conditional formatting is to me, it's a really, really useful tool that is kind of like overlooked a lot. And it really helps you communicate your information on your spreadsheets. It'll help you do some indicators and people who look at your reports. I think Mary sent everybody the file I'm going to be using to show you the demonstrations if you have that. And I would say too, if you like to and want to try to follow along, do that. But if I'm getting ahead of you a little bit, maybe just watch a little bit. Again, we're going to have this recorded and you can go back. To me, part of learning is not always just memorizing everything the instructor did, but knowing what's possible. So when you go to that YouTube video, you can be like, Tom, how do I put conditional formatting on a pivot table again? I don't remember that. So again, it's up to you guys how much you want to follow along or not. As I'm trying to keep it to an hour, I want to give you guys a ton of stuff, a ton of material. And so it may not be the greatest for working along the whole time. Does that kind of make sense? And you know, and I've been to and taught classes before, and usually after 1 or 2 hours, I'm saturated for those all day classes. So, all right, well, let me go ahead and share my screen. I think I am sharing my screen. Okay. So conditional formatting is a way to put formatting on based on values in a cell. And there's multiple different ways to do things. So in this first kind of lesson, we're just going to look at some of the basics and how to do. I've got some basic colors here. This is based on a client bill rate per hour. So if this value changes down here, I've got this based on 100. If I go to 110, it automatically updates the formatting. So this is a kind of cool way when you have tables or things you're working with, you can have some indicators in play, but once you set them, you can kind of forget about them and they'll do different things. And that goes across the board. This is just basic colors. Then we have these things called data bars, which will show you, you know, kind of in a graphical way, which one's the biggest. I mean, immediately you see the T&D company is the biggest, and then Ernst and Old is the next. This is kind of a color gradient or a heat map, if you will, to show, you know, which ones are the worst, which ones are the best. Because this one just shows greater than 100. And then the last thing we're looking at in this one is just the icon sets, the indicators that just show you really quick at a glance the best and the worst performers, if you will. All right. So if you're on that basics tab, if you're following along, if you scroll down a little bit down to around row 30, I've got the same table, but I have no conditional formatting. So I'll just show you how we're going to build this out. And you're going to see several different ways to do this as we go too. So the first thing I'm going to do is just highlight the cells that I want to format. And then on the home tab, there's a conditional formatting button. I'll just click that and I'm going to go to highlight cells rules. Now this has a lot of kind of like English words you want, like if it's greater than, or if it's less than, if it's between two numbers. And you can pick any of those, you can modify them later, but we're going to just start at greater than 100. So if it's greater than 100, and Excel will take a guess, then it's going to give you a little guess at first. It says light red fill with dark red text. Well, if it's greater than 100, that's actually good. That means we're billing the client at a lot of money. So we want that to be green. So I'll click down here. It's a green fill with dark green text. Now this thing that comes up for greater than, it's a little limiting. I'm not a huge fan, but it is a way to get it started and then you can go modify it later. So we do that. And then we'll do the red one and we can go to conditional formatting, highlight cells rules, less than 100. And will be light red fill with dark red text. Click OK. Does that make sense so far? Pretty straightforward. Does anybody know why the 100 isn't colored at all? Anyone?
Because you had greater than and less than, so you have to have
There's no
equal.
equal to.
Yep, exactly. And I'm going to throw some of these things at you guys because sometimes when you learn a new tool, you think you did it wrong. But sometimes you have to really be particular and pay attention. So now we're going to get into how do I modify these conditional formatting rules once I put them in there. So I just have to have my cursor somewhere on this space and I'll go to conditional formatting and then manage rules. And then here's where I can change it. I've got each rule showing here, cell values less than 100 or greater than. Well, I'll just click on this greater than one, edit the rule, and I'm going to make it greater than or equal to. And here's where you get more detail and you can get a lot more detailed in the formatting pulls up the entire formatting dialog box for everything. So you can put any kind of formatting you want other than just that quick one once you get into manage rules. So we'll click OK there, and then we'll click apply. Okay. Now, another thing you might want to do, since we're here, I just did it for this first column down to row 36. Well, I really need to go to 39 and go over to column C also. So you can come in here and just modify the ranges that it applies to. So instead of having to do a new rule, I can just click on this rule here. And then I can just re-highlight a range and it fills that in. I can do the same thing with the other one too. I can just reset that. So it's everything, then click apply, and then my rule applies to everything. So this is what this managing rules does for you. Another thing here, you can just delete the rule, or you can duplicate the rule to make something different. If you've got the formatting the way you want it, but just want to change it, that's one thing. All right, so let's move along to the data bars. And these are really cool. So now I'm going to just, put a data bar that shows how big that value is in that range. So I'll go to conditional formatting, and I'm going to go to data bars, and then it gives you some picks. The gradient fills kind of, I was going to say it looks good, but I really don't like it. So I'm going to say it doesn't look good. That's kind of a shaded fill of the bar. So I usually will go to solid fills, click there. Now, this is good, but the numbers are all intermixed in here, and it kind of gets it a little junky. Especially one of the things I like to do is I'll have a column with the numbers, and I'll keep the data bars with no numbers at all. So let's see how we can modify that. I'm going to go to conditional formatting and manage rules, and here's my data bar rule. Did you guys notice here? My other two rules did not come up in my manage rules now. So look up here. And this top thing in this rules manager says show formatting rules for the current selection. So it's only going to show the rules that are applying to the cell I'm on. If I want to see all of them, I can click this drop down arrow and show all the rules for this worksheet. And it will show everything. Why is that doing? So I've got a bunch here because I had those one up top too. That's a lot. And here's my new data bar rule. But I'm going to go back to just showing the current selection. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and edit that. Now the data bar is different than the other, so there's some different rules here. You can set minimums and maximums. I'll show you that. But one of the things I want to do first with the data bar is show the bar only. So I'll click that. And then the other thing you can do is by default, a data bar, the biggest value you're looking at will go to the end of the cell. But maybe you want to have a gap there. So if my biggest value was 180, if I make the maximum 250, that's another way I can make room for the value in that cell if I want it. And then I'll click OK and apply. And you see I took the number off, and it also made the biggest one not go all the way to the end of that cell. It's just another way to work with this. Another thing you could do here, typically the bar direction is going to be left to right, and it just says context here, but you could change that also to be right to left if you want to do that for some reason. And then it will put the bar going the other way, showing that there. Again, for me, what I would remember off all this is if I go to the data bars rules and click edit rule, there's a lot of stuff you can change. Like you can modify it to really work how you want it to. Any questions so far? Amy, you're going to be great being on camera. You can just tell me right away, shake your head yes or no. Okay. So let's go on and do a color scale, because that first rule was just very, it was very discrete. If it's greater than 100 or less than 100, do this or that or the other. So let's do the color scale next. And I'm going to go down to color scales. And here I got a lot of different scales to kind of give you intensity of the value, or, you know, where the value is. So these are over 100, but 120 isn't that much over 100. So it gives me a little lighter color. And then you can go in here and I will show you just briefly some of the things you could change for manage rules. So here it kind of gives you some different things in the scale. You can have the minimum be the lowest value, midpoint is 50%, high point is the highest value. So I could have the midpoint be 25 or 25%. And click OK. And that should change it to have slightly different color scales. Again, you know, you can just modify that how you want. So the last one we're going to do in the basics is the icon set. We'll go to conditional formatting and then go to icon sets. And I usually just pick the red, yellow, green ones because they're good indicators. And that's going to be similar to the others. We want to set these up. So I'm going to do some modifications to this though. So let's go back into conditional formatting and manage rules. And I don't like the way this does it because the icon set, it always defaults to a third, a third, a third. And I usually want a value, or, you know, maybe I could do different percent. But the first one's going to be green when we're in the top third, then yellow when it's between the red and the green, basically between, you know, the middle third. And then it's going to be red at the end when it's less than a third of the percent. So what I'm going to do is I want to say I want it green in the top 15%. And then I want it to be red in the bottom 15%. Well, I have to set this up so that the yellow falls between 15 and 85%. Okay, click OK. When value is greater than, oh, actually it has to be 85%. Oh, it had these opposite. So now I've got it down to just showing a couple reds and a green. So I want to ask you guys something though. Well, let me do one more thing, then I'm going to ask you something. So another thing I can do with the icon sets is just like the data bars, I can make it show the icon only. So I'll go like that and then click apply, click OK. So that's pretty good, but to me, don't the yellow ones kind of make it really busy? Because we got a lot of indicators there, we got a lot of icons there. So especially if you have a big table and you have a ton of icons, they kind of lose their value because you have so many things to look at and process, and it's hard to really dig in to see which ones are the important ones. So what I like to do with these is when I get that middle value, I like to get rid of it. So I'm going to go back to my manage rules and edit that rule. And now over here, it shows you what icon it's going to be when you have certain values or percentages. So what I can do is click on the icon for yellow, and I can pick any of those icons it showed me earlier, or I can just say no cell icon. So that's how I'm showing, you know, two different colors. Still got three values, but I'm just not going to show anything for the middle. So it'll make it a little more impactful when I just see that green or that red. One more thing I'm going to show you. We did deal with percentages. If you want to change the numbers for icon sets, you can go over here to type and just have it be a number or a formula as well, or a percentile. But for this example, we'll just keep it as percent. Click OK. And now when I've clicked apply, I've got my greens and reds. Amy, got a question?
What's the difference between percent and percentile?
So percentile, percent is always going to be between 0 and 100%. It's going to be what percent it is. But the top 10 percentile is going to pick the top 10. Not describing this well, I don't think. If you have numbers that are percent, percent is kind of like the real number of a percent, whereas percentile is going to slice it up into, you know, the 10th% or 15 or 20%. Let me come back to that at the end too. I don't know if I did a good job there, but we'll look at that at the end. Okay, so those are kind of the basics. Any other questions? Any questions here? No? Okay. Well, the inventory control one is a little bit tricky. So I might actually move that to the end because a couple of you guys talked about pivot tables. I want to make sure we get to those. So I'm going to skip over the inventory control one and we're going to go to a fun one. And this is called the holiday one. Okay. And I had fun with this earlier this year. So a couple of things. This is just a big map with a bunch of numbers in it. And I put out here what I want each color to be for the numbers. It's kind of like a paint by numbers thing. So I wanted to show you this to show you how you can kind of stack rules too. So if I want to show these, I also have a conditional formatting switch that I can turn on. And then it turns all the conditional formatting on and off. And I've got a little holiday Christmas tree decoration there for my paint by numbers. And this is all the conditional formatting, or I can turn that off when it's not there too. So let me just show you how those work. So what I've basically done is I went in and I meticulously drew out my little picture there. And then I said where the cell value 0, I want it to be this light brown color. Where it's 2, a dark brown color. It's 3, a green. 4, a light green, red, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This first conditional formatting rule, though, is based on that checkbox. And the checkbox, it's saying when the checkbox is not checked, I'm going to display everything. And if not, I'm not going to display anything. Okay. And we'll look at that rule in a second. But I want to show you something else. When you have your conditional formatting rules, these won't ever overlap each other, but you can move these rules up and down so that one can execute before another one. So you can do them in an order. So if I take this formula rule and move it down a little bit, if it works how it should work, some of the colors are going to turn off when I check that and some won't. So I click OK there, and you see how now it got all the way down to this rule, and it set all these colors first, but then it kind of stopped when I got to the formula for the checkbox, and everything else is just going to show as a number. If I move that rule back up again, it'll be different up in there. So okay, so does that kind of make sense? The ordering of rules? Good. One of the things about doing Excel as long as I have some access to some pre-release features from time to time. And I'm going to throw in a couple extra things for you guys. This checkbox right here is actually, if you don't have it now, it's going to become part of native Excel. It's going to be on the, it's on the, where was the checkbox again? I have to look for it. Where was that? Thinking it was on insert. Oh, there it is right there, right in front of my face. So on the insert menu, at some point, this checkbox is going to be just a regular thing you put in there. And then whatever's in this, whatever you check, like right now, there's not a check there, that'll become false for that cell. And if you put a check in there, it becomes true. And then so you can use that for other things too. But if you guys have ever had to put checkbox in before, they're really a pain. You have to do like a drawing object and link them separately. So this is kind of a neat new tool. You guys have, anybody have that yet? You see it? Okay, so let's go back to this formula inventory control. And this is going to get, this is going to be probably the most advanced thing we do. The next ones will be a little easier. But this is good to know too. So what I have here is I've got a spreadsheet that's kind of an inventory spreadsheet, and I'm showing a couple different things. So one is if I want to reorder this item, it's going to be highlighted in blue, and I'm going to have a flag over here. So it's kind of two different things to indicate I need to do a reorder. If an item has been discontinued, then it's going to be gray all the way across. Okay, and so if I do these things, I can go here and I can say, yes, it's discontinued, and everything turns gray. That's a conditional formatting rule to set that up. And we'll see how to do that. That's what I'm going to show you guys here. And then the same with the reorder. If I need to reorder, there's a certain amount that has to be triggered to do the reorder. Okay, so I'm going to look at these rules real quick first. And we have formula-based rules this time, okay? So we're going to look at the gray one first, because that's going to be an easy formula. It's going to say if L7 is equal to yes. So I'm going to delete this rule and we'll build it together. And click OK. So now in L7, I've got yes or no values, and I want to color that whole row gray if the value in column L is yes. I want the whole thing to be gray. So I'll start off and just make a rule totally from scratch this time. Go into conditional formatting, and I'm going to click on a new rule. And for here, this is a little cryptic. It's a lot easier to use those tools in the ribbon, but this is where you get all the control, where you can do anything you want to do. So down here, I'm going to go to use a formula to determine which cells to format. Okay, the others are just going to be basically greater than, less than, whatever. But here, this is just an Excel formula too. So right now, I'm on L9. So I'm going to say, it's asking me to format values when this formula is true. When L9 is equal to yes, when that's true, then I want that whole row to be gray. So I'll go to my format, and I'll go to fill, and I'll make that row gray and click OK. And let me just go ahead and click OK and show you what happens here. Ooh, it works. It's gray, but the rest of the row's not gray. So that's no good, right? So what we could do is go back to our rule, and then we say, for our rule, instead of just applying to L9, we want it to apply to the entire row here. And click apply and OK. But that didn't work. This is where these things get tricky, because the way Excel works, I'll tell you what it's doing. Because I just copied that formula, Excel is looking at every cell to see if that value is yes. So if I type yes there, that works. So this is what we don't want to happen. We want it all to be based on that last row there. So we have to go back to formatting, manage rules, and look at our formula. And this is where, I don't know if you guys know about relative or absolute format, relative or absolute referencing. By default with Excel, whenever you copy a formula, it automatically knows to copy it to the right place. but sometimes you want something locked in place. You don't want that cell to move. So what you have to do in that time is you have to put a little padlock in front of it. So we want, actually I'm on B. I got to get off that one and do it for this one. If B9 equals yes, what it did. So I don't want it to be B9. It's got to be L9. And it changed that because I extended that range. So on L9 equals to yes. But I don't want that column to move if I copy this formula other places. So I need to put a $sign in front of L. And click OK. Now it should apply to B9 to L9. Now if I click apply, boom, works. So the formula-based rules can be really powerful, but they can be tricky too. And a lot of times what I'll do is if I need to figure out a formula for conditional formatting, I'll go out to a column first and write the formula there and see if it works, see if it becomes yes or no there first, and then I'll paste it back into that formula. All right, let me pause for a question there. Anyone? Okay, go Amy.
So you only got row 9. You didn't get the whole data set.
Right, right.
Okay, so you're still going to continue on that with that.
So how would I do that? What would I click on first?
But you'd have to go back and make sure you'd have the whole data set. I don't
Yep,
remember what
yep.
you had highlighted.
Yeah, because I just went that row. That's a good point. So now I can go back and then this applies to, instead of just being that row, I can have it be the whole table. And it applied there. And this is cool too, because when we did that rule, we locked down, we don't want the L column to change, but we didn't lock down the row. So that's why that formula will adjust for each row. And this has a victim of multiple rules. It needs a reorder and it's discontinued. So that goes back to the ordering of the rules. Once it was discontinued, it doesn't show the reorder because that's below that. And it's already had one that's true. So, okay, so the blue rule is basically the same except for we're not going to get really in detail in this. This example was actually meant to be a lot longer. It's like a 30-minute example, but I wanted to show you how to do formula based. So what I did for the reorder though is I had it calculate in column B if we needed to reorder the item or not. And then I just had the formula based on, hey, did we indicate we need a reorder or not? And same thing with the flag. I was able to just put that there as an icon. Okay. Any last minute questions on this one? This doing conditional formatting with formulas, like I said, it's going to take a minute to sink in. It definitely did for me when I first learned how to do it. It takes because you kind of have to put an Excel formula in another place, and it's not super intuitive until you do it a bunch. But again, just knowing that that's there, and now this is awesome. If I change a value here, the whole row changes, and it gives me a really quick at a glance, which items are discontinued. So this can be a good tool. All right. Now let's get into some really fun stuff. A couple of you guys mentioned pivots. We're going to do some conditional formatting on pivot tables. So here I've got a pivot table. This is pretty basic. We're going to make it look a little better as we go along, but I've got data bars on my pivot table. So all the stuff we did before, we're going to be able to do on a pivot table by putting conditional formatting there. So the first thing I'm going to do is wipe it out. So I'm going to go to my conditional formatting button, and I'm just going to clear the rules from this entire worksheet. So we're starting from scratch. Now, the good news is, set up conditional formatting on a pivot table, you guys already know how to do it because it's actually just the same as doing conditional formatting on regular numbers. So I'm just going to click on a couple of cells here because I want to put a data bar there. And I'm going to go to conditional formatting, data bars, and go to this data bar here and click on it. And I put some data bars there, but they don't extend to the whole pivot table. But check this out. You see this little square right here, formatting options that came up? If I click this down arrow, look at the choices. Apply formatting to selected cells, all cells showing total revenue values, or all cells showing total revenue for day and item. Day and item are two of the dimensions I have on my pivot table. So this is all I have to do to put conditional formatting on the pivot tables. Once I make a rule, click that, it's on the pivot table. The biggest thing I ask of you guys of this class in the session, don't tell anybody how easy this is to do. keep it in your locker for yourself. So this is awesome though, because now I can do the pivot table stuff. I can roll things up, and the data bars go along with it. So they're showing at a roll-up level whether the distributions, they're showing rolled out, drilled out. If I filter things, if I filter something out, it'll react to that. The other thing right now, this data bar is taking the entire table to look at the values. So I'm going to go to conditional formatting and manage rules. And if you see up here, I'm going to go into my edit rules for the data bar. We haven't talked about this yet, but in your edit formatting dialog box we've shown before, we've stayed down here before to set up the values and the colors and different stuff like that. At the very top, those are those choices that we got in that little right click menu too. What the pivot table, what we want to apply this rule to. So it's either going to be the selected cells, all cells showing total revenue, or all cells showing total revenue for location and item. So let me explain what the difference of that is. If I do all for the total revenue, it's going to look at every value in the pivot table and compare them together to do your conditional formatting rule. If I do it by location and item, it's only going to look at these based on location item. So it will compare all the cakes from Brooklyn together. Then it will compare all the cookies from Brooklyn together, but they won't be compared with the cakes. They'll have their own data bars that'll look different. So if I do it that way, what happened? It went away. Oh, I've got to get rid of dates. There we go. So now it's doing it by location and item, as opposed to looking at the whole table together. These are all shall be relative to each other. Okay, they're not changing. So I might be doing something not right there. But, so what are your questions so far on this then, putting these on here? Anything we've done so far, you can put in a pivot table as far as conditional formatting. And we're doing that in the next couple ones. We're going to put some indicators in there too. But I want to show you a couple tricks. So I'm going to go and do what I call a double measure for pivot table. And this is kind of the same thing we looked at before, but I've got that data bar to the right of my number right here. So you see it seems to be really tied to the number, so I can see it easy and see the data bar that gives me that visual representation of everything. So Let me show you how to do this because this is kind of a pivot table trick too. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe out my rules. And then you see how I have the numbers there again too. I have the same revenue numbers in there when I wiped off the rule. That's going to be important here in a second. So on my pivot table, another value here. I'm going to get rid of that. So on my pivot table, I've got revenue values for each location and each item here. And I want to have data bars next to it, but I still want to show the number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and grab revenue and drag it down under total revenue. So it becomes just basically a duplicate of revenue. Okay. So we're going to do the conditional formatting rule on this particular item here. So another thing I'm going to do here is on the value field settings, instead of saying sum of revenue again, I just put a couple of dots so that it doesn't really show up as a field name, but it still is. It's another field in there, but it's not going to take over or show something else compared to that other revenue. So now I'm going to do my data bar there. And I clicked on the thing that just said show it for all the cells showing the ... values. So now what I've got is the data bar next to the number. And then the last thing I can do is what we did earlier, is I can go to my conditional formatting rules. And I can show the bar only. And to me, this kind of looks good because I still give people the number, but you give that quick visual. I mean, you know, it's really easy to tell which store and product did the best right here. Cakes, because we put that visual on there that shows the most revenue for that. Any questions? Mary, it looks like you've already got an idea what you want to use this for. Sorta?
Yeah, I mean, it would be an addition to what I already do. So, I mean, I think, you know, the visual is definitely nice than just looking at the numbers.
Okay. Again, apologize for going so fast, you guys, but again, I wanted to give you guys a ton of information today. And then again, remember, I want you guys just to remember what's possible with all this. And if you need to hit me up with an email again or rewatch the video or go, you know, now you can Google, hey, how do I put conditional formatting on a pivot table? Like, you know, it's possible now and how you can use it. And that's really what I'm trying to get for you guys today. So the last thing I'm going to show you, I might show you one more, but the next really cool thing is pivot tables with thresholds, okay? So we talked about this earlier. I've gotten rid of all the yellow dots, all the yellow indicators on this pivot table. I applied icon sets as opposed to data bars. But this is really cool now. Look up here. I've got thresholds for what I want to be red and green in numbers. And I've set it up so I can just type the number. So right now, if something's 450 or greater, it's green. But here's one that's 516, here's one that's 600, here's one that's 480. What happens if I make this green threshold 800? All my conditional formatting can be based on the values I type in somewhere else. This is an amazing analytics tool right here. Like, this is, you can really drill into and see where the problems are. I'm a real big guy. I mean, a lot of workplaces really like to focus on the red. Why are we red? Why are we red? Why are we doing better? We got to like fix that. I'm real big on looking at the green stuff too, the stuff on the high end, because these stores or these people that are getting these high marks, they can help the people theoretically that are having struggles. Like, why are you able to sell so many cakes in Manhattan, but you can't sell any croissants or whatever, you know, whatever the the next thing is. Like, how can we get you guys together to figure out how to increase the sales in this thing? So let's go in here and see how to build this rule to go off of the thresholds in the sheet. So I'm going to wipe this rule out. So I did the same thing. I've got my dual pivot table field that has the ... and has the numbers there. I'm going to put icon sets there. So I'm going to go to my icon sets, green, yellow, red. Apply this to entire pivot table. And now I got to go and modify my values and modify that rule. So I'll come in here, go to conditional formatting, and edit this rule. So here we don't want to be percentages, we want to be numbers. So anything of sign percent, we need to change this to number. So anywhere where the number is greater than or equal to 0, but also where the number is greater than or equal to 50. Okay, green, yellow, red. No, we need to go the other way. When it's greater than or equal to 800, we want it to be green. When it's greater than 50, we want it to be yellow, and otherwise we want it to be red. Okay, so got that there. Let's get the icon only. So here's how you make it work off another value in the spreadsheet. Where I've got the value right here, anybody got an idea what we do? Just click on the cell. So instead of having a value, once your cursor's in there, just click on that 800 cell. And then for this one, click on the 50, click OK. And I'm going to get rid of my yellow because you guys know I hate the yellow icon. That's it. And now it's not hard coded. It's tied into, whatever people type in, so we can see what the indicators are, and it just comes across really well. All right. The last one that's in here, and you guys have these sheets too, so you have all these rules, is just a heat map pivot. And we won't even necessarily go into this one, but this is one where I just applied a color scale to that entire pivot table too. So this is kind of a neat way to look at everything. But this, you don't want to see subtotals or see those extra bands typically, because that can make it a little confusing. If I put a location in now, it's not quite as impactful, but this is just another thing you can put on pivot tables that can help you visualize things. And the last tab that we'll look at is just the bakery store sales. And that is just the data I use for all the pivots and examples in this workbook. Go and look at these. All right, ton of stuff. It's about 12:55. So I would like to pause here and let you guys ask any questions or anything for at least the next 5 minutes. And then I'm going to stay on till the last person leaves or until 1:30. If you guys want to ask more questions about some more Excel things, I can show you the class that I built, see if you have any interest in looking at that at all. But for right now, what kind of other questions you have on conditional formatting or things that we might have covered today, or any thoughts there? Just go.
Can you go back to how you just pulled another row to make those icons or those data bars? I didn't see exactly how you did that on the pivot table, how you just duplicated the data.
Oh, yeah, okay. So what this is I've made a pivot table and I put revenue in the pivot table. So I want the conditional formatting to be on revenue, but I also don't want it to overshadow my number here. So what I did is I just took the revenue field again in the pivot table, and I basically put the same field in the pivot table twice. You can do that. and you can have different formatting. So I put it in twice. Once it's in there, I went in and renamed it. But the name I give it, and this is just a Tom Hinkle personal style trick thing. I just give it 3 dots so that that's the name of the field. But when you're on the pivot table, it doesn't even look like anything now. It doesn't look like a real field. And then once I put the data bars in there and hid the numbers, it really looked like it was just a data bar. So that's me just taking the tool and putting a creative spin on it. Okay, Ray, I'm going to pick on you because you came on camera.
I was just gonna say I don't have like any particular question at the moment, but I do think it's really cool. Like a lot of these, I didn't realize like how in-depth conditional formatting could be. I knew that you could do kind of like highlight a cell and do like some very basic functions with it, but it's cool. It's really cool. Even like you said, even if you don't memorize exactly what to do, just knowing that it's even possible and then going back and figuring it out is what's really good for learning, I think, with these kind of
Yeah.
things. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to teach us some of these things and just, yeah, it's really interesting and good to
Thank
know.
you are 100% not alone. Most people just think, it's just for color in a cell or two. Like it's not really worth my time. But
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
when you get it on the pivots, man, it's pretty powerful.
Hmm.
I didn't realize how easy it was. I was just, you know how they have, and I don't know why it sometimes shows up and it sometimes doesn't, but they have like the good, bad, green, red area next to the conditional formatting. And I'll sometimes just use that to like highlight things, but just being able to make a rule and apply it to the whole data set, then I don't have to manually go through like individually color cells.
You have to do a little work up front. That's no lie.
Yeah.
But then once it's there, like I said, the my good use case for that is the inventory control sheet. Like this is, awesome. If I forgot my rule for reordering.
I think your reorder point is number I. Yeah. If it's is less than G, right?
Yeah, there you go. You saw it in there. Good. See, so I don't know everything. Like I
I
even
just did
lose
did
track of myself.
inventory at our whole facility yesterday. So
Okay. So yeah, this is so okay. Quantity in stock, reorder level 132. Yes, this be something cool for you maybe then. If it's 133, got to reorder that. I might make that red instead of blue, but yeah. I definitely appreciate that comment, that feedback though, Ray. Glad you saw some interesting stuff. What about anybody else? What about the other off-camera folks? Anybody have anything they thought was particularly cool or useful?
So this is Beth. I like the threshold one that you could, go and change your thresholds, the red and green, where you could, go and change them at any time. I thought that one was pretty interesting to be able to go and change them at your will.
And then again, how easy it really is to do
Yeah.
that too.
Once you had it set up, I thought that was, that was something that was very interesting.
Can you do that threshold off of just like, on that inventory sheet, with, like not on the pivot? I'm gathering you can do the same thing
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
when you're
anywhere.
not using pivots. If you go to the inventory control page or wherever it was, yeah, there, I'm assuming you can do the same exact thing.
Yeah, anywhere you have a rules, anywhere you have a value here. So if cell value is greater than or equal to 100, I could just make that. Why did it say plus?
Gotcha. Okay. So if you had different thresholds, you can do it that way.
Yeah. So I apply that. Why did that not work?
Is it because you have to apply it to that selection, or?
Greater than or equal to 100. Oh no, it's 100. Duh, I made the same value, so it didn't do anything different.
Oh. Yeah, that's not helpful.
There we go. That's what we call a picnic error. The problem is in the chair, not the computer. But yeah, so anywhere that you had those values in a conditional formatting, you can tie it back to, wait, that's not the right rule. You can tie it back to a cell value somewhere on your sheet to control it. It's just it's much cooler doing it on a pivot table, for an example.
Yeah, I know. It's just sometimes I won't do the pivot and I'll have it just in a regular spreadsheet. And I guess the other question that I had, not that I'm trying to take up all the time, but when you're using a formula, I don't know if you mind going back to like, where instead of doing the conditional formatting where you kind of say it's greater than this or less than that, when you're creating a formula, can you go back to that just for a minute? Because that's where sometimes I will struggle is
So
it,
yeah,
if like the applies to section, it seems like you had your formula in one section. Like if you go to manage rules, I can probably see it better what I'm trying to ask. But so the formula, I guess the rule is over here. So that's your formula. So when you're setting up a formula, you just do it for one particular, you just sit in a cell and do it for that cell, and then you apply it to the whole selection. Is that kind of, because that's where I sometimes get lost.
There may be another way to do it, but again, this didn't come second nature to me either. I still fumble around a little bit, but the easiest way for me is to do it, like I said, on one cell, see if it works, and then you can spread it out to the entire table.
So you create it there as like you said, there's a yes. So then you click OK on that. So you picked whatever that is. My eyes can't see it very well. But that's one cell.
Right.
That you're saying yes. And so you click OK on that. And then how do you apply it to okay, so then you go to the applies to, and you click on that and highlight your section.
Yep. And highlight the whole table.
I got it. Okay. Yeah, because that was one of the things that I struggle with a lot with the conditional formatting. It's like I don't know, I'll know what the formula is, but then I don't know how to make it apply to the section I want it to apply to.
And you have to, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but you have to kind of understand absolute and relative referencing. And again, I think we're at time today, but if you want to look those up, absolute relative referencing,
Yeah.
that shows you how to lock down cells or have them move relatively. That's another concept that the first time you've done it, it's kind of like weird because you have to go in and monkey with the cell address yourself. As opposed to just clicking on something, you have to put a $sign in front of what you want locked down, the column or the row. And that just takes a little practice too.
The absolute is with the $signs, right?
Yep. I think of the $sign as a padlock. That's
Mm-hmm.
what my little mnemonic is. Like, that's how I know I've locked down column L because there's a $sign.
And what is it called again?
Absolute referencing.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of it with that term, but that's very helpful to have like a term to connect to what you do. Because Mary, well, like I'll call Mary and I'll be like, I can't get this to work. She's like, you have the $sign wrong. And now for us to say that there's an absolute reference error, now we have some like wording that we can use. But I also like just saying the $sign wrong.
Let me show you a really quick example. So,
no, Mary's fantastic. She's super helpful.
She is awesome. She's my neighbor too, so that we know each other. So if I had like a discount here and I had it all the way down and I make my formula equals that times that. This is relative referencing. The cell formula is C10 times D10. Everybody says it works, but really it copied the formula. It's now C12 times D12. That's not C10 times D10. That's relative. It copies the formula relative to where you are. Where you get into trouble with this, if somebody puts the discount here, now that times the discount. Now if I copy it down, it's copying it relative. So now it's copying, the formula is the cell next to it times the cell on top of it. So this is really a good example of where you don't want this 10% cell to change in your formula. You want always to be multiplied by that, but you do want this cell to change. So here's where you'd say equals that times, and there's different ways to do this, but you put this here H9, but you don't want the row to change here. So here you put your padlock on the row. So when I copy that formula down, it's gonna not move that row on that particular one. So now when I do it, it kept that 9 in place. It changes the 11 to the next value. Does that kind of make sense? Most of the stuff people do is just regular default relative referencing. But when you get in a situation like this, it can be tricky to figure out if you haven't practiced it a little bit. All right, so now it's definitely after 1. You guys are free to go. You can get my information from Mary. I'm open to emails or connect with me on LinkedIn too. If anybody would like to see the little class I have built, I'd give you like a 2-minute preview of what it is and how to look at it. If not, then you're free to go. All right.
So Tom, I wanted to ask you, if you've done much with SmartView. I'm running into an issue, and I have a thing out with a trouble ticket with our IT department. And of course, our IT department's not getting back to me very quickly. With our SmartView report that I have, I can't add sheets in on the bottom tab here across the bottom and have it link it in where I can update it. Do you know much about that?
So I don't know what SmartView is, if that makes sense.
Is that related to our budget? That smart view thing that Kaufman Hall or whatever?
It's related with Core Connect. And so
You know, it could be a spreadsheet you guys have that you refer to as SmartView, but it's something that somebody might have built.
I
So
think
it
it's an
has-
add-in.
Yeah.
Because I remember having to do it as an add-in when I was in accounting.
it is an add-in in that, but it's an add-in, and it pulls in the general ledger information and stuff like that, but it's not allowing me to add sheets correctly to when I go to refresh. And what I have to do is each month I have to recreate the file and add additional. This time I got smart and I added the tabs I needed, but I added an additional like 15 tabs so that if I have accounts that I need to add, I should be okay. I shouldn't be, short. And so that was what I was kind of curious about.
No, unfortunately, I don't know about what that is, either if it's an add-in or if it's a custom thing that somebody built.
Hey, I just looked it up. It's an Excel interface that connects with Hyperion Planning and ESS base to allow users to perform an ad hoc analysis and reporting, input data instead of web-based forms, and view financial reporting reports. So it's some kind of add-in in Excel that I guess is some kind of interface that connects whatever, what that stuff is, that allows you to do ad hoc analysis and reporting. So I don't know. I mean,
show you the report real quick here.
So it's gonna, I mean, that's gonna be both. It's another kind of tool, and the tough part for somebody like me to troubleshoot something like that is a lot of companies will put things in place on it. I mean, a good example, I was sending a file over last night, and the firewall was keeping my email from getting to any of you guys. So there's probably some customizations on it that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I bet you there is. And I mean, Beth, we might be able to YouTube it. I might be able to look at it with you when we have some time.
Well, yeah, I've asked the guy to check out my settings to see if it's my access, to see if I don't have the right settings to mirror Sherry Williams, because that's the only thing I can think of, because I've like sat with Sherry Williams. I'm like, okay, I've done this 1,000 times and it's just not working. And so I've asked him, can you go? And I can start with a brand new file and I can add them and add them. But once I save that report and reopen it, I cannot add a sheet.
Is it a read only situation? I think it is an
No.
access issue. Can you do other stuff to it? Can you do
Not
other
once I save it. Once I save it and
save it? It's almost like it goes to read only when you save it.
yeah, but it doesn't have read only behind it.
That's
I
interesting.
can't add a new sheet.
You
I
can't
can
do
go
anything like, can you change numbers?
Yeah, I can change the numbers and then I can save it, but I can't add a sheet.
Huh. That does sound more like an access thing to me.
Of course, he's in India and
Oh, gosh.
yeah, and he tells me, hello, I'll get with you today. And I'm like, okay, it's today. Then still not hearing from you. But,
Well, we might be able to,
Okay.
I mean, I'll try to, I'll see if I can find out anything too, like, just by Googling out there.
yeah,
Because I remembered Smart View from when we were in when I was in accounting. So I know what you're talking about.
I mean, I went in everything I've done. I talked to Joe Sproul and he's like, man, I don't know what your Smart View's doing.
Yeah, that almost sounds like an access problem.
Because Sherry's like, I don't know what it's doing either. I went to a couple people who, that use this and have used it and created reports in it and stuff. And I don't know what it's doing.
Oh, goodness.
So, but Tom, yeah, thank you. I appreciate you, offering this class to us, and it was great. Did pick up some stuff today.
Good. I've got a couple more of these too. We want to maybe get another one in the books at some point, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. Hope if you guys have any feedback or anything, if you can just funnel it to Mary, that'd be great.
Yeah, and if there's classes that out of the list that anybody would be interested in, like the formulas or pivot tables and formula, or they're two different, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Because I think those would be beneficial.
The webinars I have are designed to kind of be free. If a company has budget to help pay me, I'll take it.
Right.
But let me show you guys real quick. Give me 2 minutes. I have made a class on this platform called Teachable. Just humor me for a second. It'll make me feel good. Where is it here? Which screen am I on? Can you guys see the screen? Does it say Teachable there? Which screen are you looking at?
Yes.
So I'll send the link through Mary too, but it's called the Excel Cafe, and I really built this with all my years of expertise. It's designed to take somebody from a very beginner level up into some advanced concepts. Not a ton, doesn't quite get into Power View yet, but some advanced pivot table stuff, some advanced formulas, some advanced charting, and it goes through, like I said, there's a bunch of different we got a couple modules on the intro, a couple formulas and functions, cool tools, pivot tables and charts. If you guys were at all interested, you can go and there's some free lectures in each of these that you don't have to pay for. And another thing I do on each of these is that if I get into one of the sections, every lesson, and these are all free previews too, has a lesson quiz where you go answer the questions. And if you get 100%, you probably don't need to do the lessons in that particular section. But yeah, if you wanted to, I can send a link through Mary. You can go look at it and see what all the topics are, see if it's worth it. I've got a coupon code to make it really super cheap for you guys, if that's possible. But don't get me wrong. The point of this was not really to sell you guys this class. It was to communicate the pivot tables or the conditional formatting. So I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Well, thank
Sounds
you.
Thank you for
Thank
your time. I
you.
just added you to LinkedIn, so hopefully you can see that.
Yay! And
Yeah.
I post some stuff on LinkedIn from time to time too. Some little like how to do this, how to do that, or why is that not working good. Awesome.
Thank you.
You guys have a good day, and we'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.